Hello there, friends and followers, and welcome to this Explain 11.5 Beta 3 video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the performance improvements that the long-awaited Vulkan brings to Explain 11. We are currently situated at Valdez Airport in the state of Alaska in the United States, and we are going to be flying the Marchetti today for this test. The Marchetti is one of my favorite aircraft by Javier Roland, and of course it gets the SimCoder's treatment, which makes this aircraft lives and breathes. In order to give you guys a point of reference, I am using my i7-700 Kaby Lake overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz. My graphic card is the RTX 2080 Ti. I have 64 GB of RAM, and Explain is installed on an M.2 SSD hard drive. In terms of plugins used in this video, I am using SkyMax Pro version 4.9.2 and ActiveSky XP Beta. In this video, we are going to be comparing the performance gains we get from Vulkan versus OpenGL, and we're going to do so with a very simple test. We are going to be taking a look at the settings in this exact scene with the same exact settings in both Vulkan and OpenGL, and we're going to bring up the frame counter, and I'm going to leave it for the duration of the video. All right, so first let's take a look at the Explain settings, and my settings have changed from the last from what I'm normally accustomed to when creating videos. Normally, I have the number of world objects set here at high. So these, let me just do this here. So this is actually what I would normally record videos in. Reflection details completely turned off, and the number of world objects is set to one notch below the high. So we're going to keep this here, and we're going to keep this here. And by the way, in terms of the reflection details, I found that there is no difference in visual quality from this setting, or this one, or the high setting. I'm not sure why, if this is a bug or this is something reserved for future improvement, but yeah, there is absolutely no difference between these settings. Another thing to note is that the sliders on the right will mainly affect your CPU, and the items here on the left will primarily affect your GPU. All right, so let's say done, and let's bring up the frame counter. And as you can see, we are getting about 60 frames with those settings in this aircraft in this specific scene. And by the way, the scenery of Valdez Airport is freeware, available on the Explain forums, and I will provide you with a link to it in the description section. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to head back to Settings, and we're going to say Do Not Use Vulkan, and we're going to restart Explain and see what happens to the performance. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have now loaded Explain in OpenGL, and the difference in performance is absolutely astonishing. We went down 56 frames. So by using Vulkan, we have gained about 56 frames in total in this exact aircraft setting, computer specs, everything. Really, really astonishing result when you look at the different technologies and how performance is seriously degraded with OpenGL drivers. So definitely a step in the right direction for laminar research, and I'm really pleased with the results. What we're going to do now is we're going to revert back to Vulkan, and we're going to take the Marchetti for a short flight here around Valdez Airport. Explain has loaded again in Vulkan, and just look at those frames. What we're going to do now, we're going to fire up the Marchetti here, and we're going to take it for a short flight. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, I am using SkyMax Pro version 4.9.2, one of the early adopters of Vulkan. Here's what we're going to do. Let me show you my SkyMax Pro settings first. So I have the cloud area covered at the maximum. Puff speed rotation, the default. God rays are turned off. I have this option turned off. Enable cloud reflections does not work in Vulkan, unfortunately. Lens flare effects is turned off. Cloud shadows at 0.5. And the cloud terrain blend softness is at maximum. All right, let's go ahead and start this aircraft. And I'll tell you guys, I'm a bit rusty, but let's see here. This needs to be off. This needs to be off. And let me see if I can set the parking brake. No, it doesn't want to set. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but it just doesn't want to set. That's fine. Battery is on. And nav lights beacon. And then we can put the mixture on full rich, turn on the fuel boost pump, and we're going to bring the throttle right about here. And just because I can't set the brakes, I'm going to hold the toe brakes. And let's go ahead and start the There we go. Okay. Alternator goes on. Fuel booster pump goes off. Let's reduce RPM. And by the way, no problems there with the reality expansion pack, so everything works perfectly fine, just as it does in OpenGL. Let me see here. Avionics Master is on. I really like this aircraft a lot. It's one of my favorites, really, in X-Plane. A very immersive aircraft. The sounds are just absolutely gorgeous. All right, we're good to go. Let's remove the toe brake here. And let's taxi to the runway and take off. Now, one thing you'll notice is the smoothness. Very, very smooth. Absolutely no stuttering. Which is really, really cool. There are a lot of add-ons that do not work. I haven't tested them in this Beta 3, but in Beta 2, better pushback doesn't work. The TOLUS, both the A319 and A321 do not work. The flight factor A320 does not work. Some of the Orbex scenery does not load. It complains about VRAM if I have the world object set to maximum. And when it does load one notch down, it kind of gives me like an error. It looks like something related to debugging from Laminar Research team. All right, let's go ahead and turn on the landing lights, strobes. Pitot can go on as well. Why not? All right, we're coming up here to the runway, and we are ready to go. Now, the reason I picked Valdez is that the area has a lot of vegetation and a large body of water. All right, here we go. Gotta love those sounds. All right, 60 knots and rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gears going up. Gonna ease off there on the throttle. Take it to about 2,500 RPM. And we're going to continue our climb. Just look at the smoothness. Very, very smooth. And we're still maintaining about, what, 50, 51 frames? Very nice indeed. Very smooth. By the way, Real View is what I use for the head shake, and it works perfectly in this version of X-Plane. Again, no stuttering while we turn. Very, very smooth experience. And this is really a game changer for X-Plane. But definitely there is a lot of competition now that we have Dead Stick, the Bush Simulator, coming out very soon. We have P3D version 5 coming out very soon. And from what I've seen, it actually looks very impressive. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to head back and land, but first, let's take a look at the outside. Again, look at the smoothness of the scene. There are no stutters whatsoever. And by the way, just the only thing I'm using here is SkyMax Pro version 4.9.2, so really there are no other add-ons being used here. That is a very nice looking simulator. All right, let's head back over to Valdez and land. Yeah, so definitely in terms of flight simulation in general, I think 2020 is going to be a really fine year for flight simulation with Vulkan coming to life, Dead Stick, prepared version 5, and of course the highly anticipated Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, which I am a beta tester or an alpha tester of, and I'm under a signed NDA, so I can't really say much, but what I can say is that I'm really enjoying it a lot, and it is definitely a departure from anything that we have seen in flight simulation. All right, it's giving us the landing gear warning horn here. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to lower the landing gear and get a warning. That's fine. All right, we're coming in to land now, and let me tell you, this is a really nice scene. It looks very, very impressive in terms of performance. No stuttering, very smooth. And the visual quality is, again, of the highest order. All right, let's go ahead and lower the flaps. All right, here we go. Flaps are full. We're a bit too high. Just really very, very smooth. Now the frames are down to about 38, 40, something like that. That was an okay landing. All right, so welcome back to Valdez Airport. Now, what we're going to do now is one of the airports that I've always had trouble flying in and out of was Los Angeles International with the Mr. X scenery. Now, Los Angeles is a very involved scene simply because of all the buildings and all the vegetation and the water bodies around the airport. So it will really put your it will really put the sim to the test. It will put your PC to the test. So it's going to really strain your system because everything needs to work at maximum power. Your CPU, your GPU, everything needs to work very, very hard to render the scene. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to head over to Los Angeles Airport and we're going to load it with the Zibo Boeing 737. Let's head over to California. All right, folks, we have loaded now the Zibo Boeing 737 at Los Angeles International Airport. We're getting about 34, 36 frames or so. The scene is still pretty smooth, as you can see. There's an overcast, and I assume there is some rain as well. Let's do one thing, because Liberain isn't working in... yeah, so there is some rain, as you can see. We're going to turn on the wipers. So the Liberain library is one of the things that do not work in this version. And as you can see, we are getting, 37. It actually went up a bit. Now, these are the same settings, so I haven't changed anything. The number of rolled objects is set at maximum. The reflection detail is set here, and everything else is the same. Now we're going to release the parking brake, and we're going to take off and just assess performance. This is, again, a very involved area. The Los Angeles area is a very involved area. Let me see here what's going on. Why aren't we moving? There we go. All right. We're going to give it full power. Again, this is not a flight video, so we're not going to worry about any procedures or anything like that. All right, I think that's good enough. And rotate.
Positive brake.
Gears going up.
400. $1,000.
All right. You can retract the flaps, and you guys can look at the frames. And flaps 1, flaps 0. Just look at that scene and the smoothness. Look at the smoothness. Very, very smooth indeed. No stuttering whatsoever. Still maintaining about, about 35 frames, 40-ish. It kind of goes up and down. But overall, I think it's doing pretty well. Let me engage the autopilot here. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to do the ultimate test, and we're going to set X-plane settings to the maximum, and we're going to see what happens. For this, we are going to be traveling to Papa Sierra 01. We are now situated at Papa Sierra 01. This is where we're going to perform the ultimate test by setting all X-plane sliders to the maximum and turn on all the features. This scenery, by the way, is that of Orbex, and it is a breathtaking scenery. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to head over to Settings. And as you can see, I have the HDR set to max, maximum texture quality, and we're going to set the anti-aliasing to the max. Everything else here is maxed, and we're going to say draw shadows on scenery. And we're going to say done. All right, so this is what we get with everything maxed out, and as you can see, we're down to 19 frames. Now, the reason is when you set draw shadow on scenery, this causes every single object in the sim to cast shadow, and your processor and your GPU have to work very hard to render the scene with those settings. It still it looks good, it looks really good, but then it's definitely not flyable. So we're going to make a small change. We're going to come back here, and we're going to remove draw shadows on scenery, and we're going to note what happens to the frame rates. And now, as you can see, we have gained considerable amount of frames, going from 19 to 31 frames, and that's because we turned off the shadows. Now, the scene does not look as convincing, but it still looks very good. So there's always a compromise between performance and visual quality. Now, what's going to bring this back up to an acceptable level is if we go here and reduce this to 4xSA, FXAA, that should do it. And by the way, if you are running a 4K monitor, you can bring this down all the way here. But I'm using a 2K monitor, so this setting is the best setting to get rid of shimmers. So here we go, we are updating our settings, and as you can see now, we are back at 44, 45 frames. Yeah, we can still see some shimmers here, but that's perfectly fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna fire up this Cessna, and let's see here, let's make sure this is turned off, and battery on. Nav and beacon lights are on. Mixture full bridge. We'll give it crack the throttle here. All right. Alternator on. Avionics, landing light, strobes. That's fine. Yeah, everything looks good. All right, let's go ahead and take it for a short flight. Release the parking brake. Very, very smooth. Really beautiful scenery here by Orbex. All right, I think that's good enough. We're gonna make a turn here, and we're gonna give it maximum power to take off. So definitely, if you have a high-end PC, you'll be able to max everything out here in this scene, this specific scene, but I still don't think you'll be able to do that at, for example, London Heathrow or KLAX. All right, let's give it full power.
Caution, on taxiway, on taxiway.
Right, and here we go, rotate. And ladies and gentlemen, Vulkan definitely allows you to gain a lot of performance and still enjoy, you know, the visual quality of X-Plane 11. I really like what I'm seeing here. Nice reflections. The water texture seems to have changed, but I'm not sure. I've never had the reflections on before Vulkan, so the last time I've used water reflections was in X-Plane 10. So now we can definitely use them in this version of X-Plane. Performance-wise, it is definitely very impressive. Very smooth, very fluid. Even when panning the camera, even when you pan the camera, it still is very smooth. So yeah, a lot of exciting things coming to the flight simulation world in 2020. Vulkan being one of them in X-Plane. Dead Stick Bush Simulator is coming out very soon. P3D version 5 in just a few days. And of course, the long and highly anticipated Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, which I'm an alpha tester of. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I wanted to share with you in this video. I hope that you've enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Please stay safe, and as always, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.